So we know with narcissists, you see a lot of addictions that come alongside it. A lot of times people ask me, like, what's the correlation between narcissism and addiction? And I'm like, there is a correlation, but it's not dependent on narcissism. It's typically dependent on the fact that they're trying to sedate and they're trying to hide the narcissism. Now, it could be something that the narc doesn't even care, and they're just being like, I'm going to do whatever I want, screw everybody else, and they're going to, be on drugs, or they're going to do alcohol, or whatever it might be. And a lot of times what you see in this type of situations is the fact that the narcissist will use addictions to be able to sedate how they're feeling, to be able to sedate the thoughts and the actions that they're doing on a day-to-day basis that they don't want to come to terms with. Because remember, a narcissist is all about image, but they also don't admit the image that they actually are. It's that fantasy versus reality. So like, as a narcissist, I want to give off a great image, a great fantasy, but I don't want to acknowledge the reality of the shitty person that I've been. So as a result, there's going to be times that I lie and I gaslight so I can stay in this aspect of fantasy. But then there's also times where it's a lot easier just to sedate. Like, let me just numb the feeling of all the things that I've done. Let me just numb the fact that I've hurt people. Let me just numb the fact that I've destroyed other lives. Let me numb the fact that I've hurt my wife or I've hurt my family, whatever it might be. And you'll see a pattern that'll start that addictive cycle, that they'll go from being happy to being sad, to having to take part of whatever addiction it is, to feeling guilty and gloomy about it, to back thinking like, maybe this will make me happy, so they do the addiction again, and it just keeps going on and on and on. Now, a lot of times you'll see this in narcissistic and toxic relationships of people trying to use drugs, alcohol, whatever it might be, to sedate. Now, it could be those substances. Sometimes it could be sex. And there's people that a lot of times they're like, whoa, I think my narcissist has a sex addiction. Well, believe it or not, whenever I first started coming aware about narcissism and things like that, one of the things that people thought I had was a sex addiction. They're like, you've cheated, you've had affairs, so then you have a sex addiction. I was like, okay. So I finally got to the place where I was like open and like willing to at least entertain that option. So went away for a 3-day intensive like weekend, and it was like super intense. It was like 8 to 8 or whatever it was, and it was all a sex addiction intensive. And I got into that, and I started like seeing what was going on there. I started interacting with the different people, hearing different people's stories, and I was just like, this is not me. Like, this is not part of my story. Is there sex and affairs in my story? Yes. But as far as like it being an addiction or a compulsion or even a sedation at times, it wasn't me. A lot of times people will say like, oh, my narcissist has a sex addiction. Or the narcissist will come out and be like, this is what I struggle with. It's just a sex addiction. Okay. Now, it's not minimizing the people that have that. I'm not saying that at all. But I do know there is several times that I've seen narcissists that claim that when they don't actually have a sex addiction, they just have a them addiction. They just have addiction with themselves, with control, with image. And as a result, it comes out in those affairs. It comes out in those type of addiction natures. When in reality, it's not the fact that, oh, I'm a sex addict and I have narcissism tendencies. No, I'm a narcissistic and I also cheat. That was kind of like the difference of being able to see and understand some of it, that a lot of times people are still struggling to kind of wrap their minds around. Being a sex addict doesn't make someone manipulative. Being a sex addict doesn't make someone always gaslight. Being a sex addict doesn't always give them a giant sense of entitlement. Like, there's a lot more things that go on with narcissism versus just addicted to sex. So, just something for you to think about. Just wanted to share that today. If you haven't already, please subscribe. Follow me on TikTok, Facebook, or Instagram.